What if the only thing holding you back from the life you want isn't, external stuff that challenges your past, but actually just your own way of thinking about it?
That's a big question to start with, isn't it? It sort of flips things on their head.
It really does.
Yeah.
And that's exactly the kind of shift we want to dive into today. We're looking at a book that's caused quite a stir, challenged a lot of perspective.
Sold millions, too.
Right. It's The Courage to be Disliked by Ichiro Kishimi and Fumitake Koga. And it's basically, well, it's Adlerian psychology, but presented in this really interesting format.
Yeah, it's set up like a conversation, a dialogue between this quite skeptical young person and a philosopher.
Which is clever, actually.
It really works because the youth raises all the questions and doubts you probably feel yourself when you first hear these ideas, and the philosopher just sort of walks them through it. Makes some pretty complex stuff feel, well, more accessible.
Yeah, relatable. And it tackles the big stuff head on, doesn't it? Like, why are we unhappy? Why are relationships so tricky? Can we actually change, or are we just stuck with our past?
Exactly.
So our mission here is to unpack some of the most maybe surprising, even kind of uncomfortable ideas from the book, see how they might offer a different lens on things.
Okay, so where should we start? Maybe with that first really foundational concept.
Yeah.
The one that often throws people.
You mean challenging cause and effect thinking?
Precisely.
Yeah.
We normally think, okay, something happened back then, the cause, and that dictates how I now the effect. Like if you didn't get enough attention as a kid, that's why you feel insecure now.
Right. Or, like the book says, a plant withers because it wasn't watered. Seems straightforward. Etiology, they call it.
Yeah, etiology. Past cause determines present effect. But Adlerian psychology, as the book explains it, flips this. It talks about teleology.
Teleology. Okay.
Which means looking at things not based on past causes, but on their present purpose or goal. So your current state isn't caused by the past. It actually serves a goal you have right now.
Hang on. So you're saying past trauma isn't the reason someone feels, say, anxious? That sounds, I don't know, like it's dismissing real pain.
And that's a really common reaction. The youth in the book pushes back hard on that too. Adler isn't saying the past didn't happen or that it wasn't tough.
Okay.
What he's saying is that your current state, your anxiety or insecurity now, isn't an unavoidable result of that past. It might be something you're unconsciously using to achieve a goal in the present.
Okay, I need an example, like the reclusive friend the book talks about.
Yes, exactly. The youth talks about his friend who's shut in, crippled by anxiety. The usual view etiology would say he's anxious because of past stuff, and that's why he stays inside.
It makes sense.
But the teleological view suggests something different. It suggests the anxiety, while feeling very real, might be created by the friend to achieve the goal of not having to go out, not having to face social situations.
So, he wants to stay home, and the anxiety is his justification, almost like a tool.
It can sound like that, maybe a bit strategic or even manipulative, though the book stresses it's often unconscious. It's how our minds can work to meet underlying goals we might not even admit to ourselves. Think about anger. How often do we say, "You made me angry"? The book gives that great example of the mother shouting at her daughter.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
She's furious, yelling. The phone rings, she answers it. Perfectly calm, polite conversation. Hangs up. Immediately back to yelling at the daughter.
Right, I've definitely seen versions of that.
So was the anger an uncontrollable outburst caused by the daughter? Or was it a tool the mother used maybe to dominate, to make her point, to assert control? When the phone rang, the goal changed. Polite interaction, so she put the tool down. Call ends, goal reverts, tool comes back out.
Wow, so emotions aren't just things that happen to us. They can be things we deploy.
That's the implication.
Yeah.
Or, remember the blushing example? The student who wants to confess feelings but is terrified of blushing?
Yeah.
Etiology might say the fear of blushing causes the inability to confess. Teleology flips it. The goal is to avoid the potential rejection or difficulty of confessing. The fear of blushing or the blushing itself becomes the handy excuse, the reason they can't do it. It serves the goal of avoidance.
Okay, this is massive because it means your present struggles aren't necessarily locked in by your history.
Exactly.
They're connected to goals you have now, maybe without even realizing it.
And the implication of that is huge, or I could say maybe a bit scary, but also incredibly empowering. If your present isn't fixed by the past, but by your present goals,
then you can change your goals.
you can change your goals and therefore you can change your state. Change is possible right now, regardless of your past. The book puts it so bluntly. No matter what has occurred in your life up to this point, it should have no bearing at all on how you live from now on.
Wow. No bearing at all. That's strong.
It is. It means your past isn't a life sentence. It's about how you choose to live now.
But that puts a lot of responsibility back on you, doesn't it? It takes
No.
courage.
It absolutely requires courage. The courage to see your own agency, perhaps. And that courage is central to the next big theme, interpersonal relationships.
Okay.
Because Adler makes another really bold claim here. He says all problems are, at their root, interpersonal relationship problems.
All of them. Seriously. Even feeling like inadequate about my own skills or something, that feels personal.
Well, think about it. Where does that feeling of inadequacy come from? Usually it's in comparison to someone else, right?
Yeah.
The philosopher in the book poses that thought experiment. If I were the only person in the world, there'd be no reason to worry about my height or my intelligence or anything. Feelings of inferiority, competition, loneliness, they only exist in a social context.
Okay. I can see that. We are social creatures, after all. So if relationships are the source of all problems, how do we navigate that? How do we avoid getting constantly tangled up?
The key technique the book offers is something called separation of tasks.
Separation of tasks. Okay.
It's about clearly figuring out what is your responsibility, your task, and what belongs to someone else. And then this is the crucial bit. You don't interfere in their tasks, and you don't let them interfere unduly in yours.
Right. But how do you draw that line? How do you know whose task it is?
The book offers a really simple guideline. Ask yourself, who ultimately gets the result, the consequence of this action?
Okay. Give me an example.
Studying. If a child studies, who gets the consequence? Good grades, learning, or maybe failing if they don't.
The child, obviously.
Right. So studying itself is the child's task. A parent can offer support, create a good environment, be ready to help if asked. That might be the parent's task.
Right.
But forcing the child to study, doing it for them, getting overly invested in their results,
Yeah.
that's interfering in the child's task.
Got it. So it's about respecting that boundary. What about, like, in therapy?
Same principle. The therapist's task is to offer guidance, support, tools. But the decision to actually change their life, to use those tools, that's the client's task. The therapist can't make them change.
Okay. Now, what about the really common one? Worrying what other people think of me. If I'm always anxious about whether my boss likes my work, or if that person thinks I said something stupid, whose task is that thinking?
According to Adlerian psychology, that's entirely their task.
Their task, really.
What someone else thinks of you, how they judge you, whether they like you or not, that happens inside their head. It's their opinion, their feeling. The consequence of holding that opinion is ultimately theirs. Your task is how you choose to act, how you live your life authentically. Trying to control their opinion or constantly worrying about it is stepping into their task.
The book had that quote, didn't it? Something like, you're the only one who's worried how you look.
Exactly. It sounds harsh, maybe, but think about the freedom in that.
It does sound freeing. But isn't there a risk of becoming, I don't know, cold or selfish? Just thinking, not my task, and ignoring people's feelings.
That's a really important point. And the book is clear, this isn't about becoming isolated or uncaring. It's actually presented as fundamental to your own freedom. If you spend your life trying to meet everyone else's expectations, constantly fishing for approval or validation, whose life are you living?
Theirs, I suppose.
Right. You're letting their judgment, their potential reaction, dictate your choices. You've basically handed them the controls. Freedom, in this view, means taking back those controls, living according to your own principles, making your own choices, and accepting that, yeah, some people might not like it. That's the courage to be disliked.
Ah, there's the title again. It connects directly.
It really does. And this separation of tasks isn't the final destination. It's more like clearing the path. It's the gateway to potentially healthier, more honest relationships because it establishes respect for boundaries. It's like needing the right distance to read a book. Too close is smothering. Too far is disconnected.
So maintaining that moderate distance, as the book calls it.
Yeah. It allows you to interact without getting completely enmeshed in others' approval or trying to control their lives.
Okay, so relationships can be the source of problems, but separating tasks helps manage that. What's the flip side? Where does the happiness come in?
The flip side and the ultimate goal, according to Adler, is achieving a sense of community feeling.
Community feeling. What does that mean exactly?
It's that deep sense of belonging, of feeling it's okay for me to be here, a sense of connection, initially maybe with close family or friends, but ideally expanding outwards to your wider community, to humanity, even to the universe. It's feeling like you have a place.
That sounds nice, very desirable. How do you actually get there? How do you build that feeling?
The book lays out 3 pillars, essentially, that work together: self-acceptance, confidence in others, and contribution to others.
Okay, let's take those one by one. Self-acceptance. Is that just like positive thinking, telling myself I'm great even when I mess up?
It's actually different from simple self-affirmation. The book calls it affirmative resignation, which sounds a bit odd, maybe.
Yeah, resignation sounds negative.
But it means firmly grasping reality, accepting yourself as you are, flaws and all. Not pretending you're a 10 if you feel like a 6. It's about acknowledging the 6 for it and then focusing on how you can use your actual capabilities, your equipment, effectively. It's changing how you see and utilize what you have rather than wishing you were someone else.
So, honest assessment and focusing on what you can do, not just wishful thinking. Got it. What about the next one? Confidence in others.
This one's tough for a lot of people. It means having unconditional belief in others, seeing them fundamentally as comrades, not potential threats or rivals.
Unconditional. That sounds risky. What about trust? Don't you need to earn trust?
The book distinguishes between this confidence, unconditional belief, and trust, which it calls credit, conditional, based on collateral or past behavior. Adler argues that if you base your relationships on doubt, always waiting for betrayal, always looking for evidence that people don't care, you'll find it. Your suspicion shapes the relationship.
That fear of being hurt or taken advantage of,
Yeah.
it feels like self-protection. But you're saying it blocks real connection.
That's the argument. Fear of betrayal keeps relationships shallow. Overcoming that fear, choosing to extend confidence even though there's a risk, is what opens the door to deeper bonds. And this links back to self-acceptance. If you accept yourself, you're perhaps less dependent on others' actions for your own sense of worth, making it easier to risk extending that confidence.
Okay, that makes sense. Self-acceptance fuels the courage to have confidence in others. And the third part was
Contribution.
contribution to others, yes. And again, this isn't about self-sacrifice or becoming a martyr.
Good, because that sounds exhausting.
Right. It's about the subjective feeling that you are useful, that your existence or your actions are contributing positively to the community, or even just to one other person. It's the inner sense of, I am of use to someone.
And that feeling is where your sense of worth comes from, not from, say, achievements or praise.
Exactly. The book makes this vital distinction between contributing on the level of acts doing specific things and contributing on the level of being.
Level of being. Yeah. You don't necessarily have to do grand things to feel you contribute. Simply existing, being present for others, can be a profound contribution. The example given is like an elderly, bedridden grandparent. They might not be doing anything in the active sense, but their mere presence brings joy, connection, meaning to their family.
So the family finds value in their being there.
And crucially, the elderly person can gain a sense of their own worth through feeling needed, cherished, or simply by recognizing the positive impact their being has on others. It's the feeling of contribution, however it arises, that fuels your awareness of your own value.
That really reframes what value means. It's not about productivity necessarily.
Not at all. And think about how this connects to relationships. The book suggests thank you is the language of contribution in horizontal relationships equals acknowledging each other's value. Praise, on the other hand, often comes from a vertical place, someone above, judging someone below.
Right, like a pat on the head versus genuine appreciation. Okay, so we've got this shift from cause to purpose, separating tasks for freedom, and aiming for community feeling through self-acceptance, confidence, and contribution. How does this all translate into, like, actually living day to day?
This brings us to the final big idea, which is about how we view life itself. Most of us, maybe unconsciously, see life as a line.
A line.
Yeah, like starting in the past, heading towards some future destination, climbing a mountain maybe, reaching a goal retirement, the perfect job, whatever. The present is just a stepping stone towards that future point. The book calls this a kinetic view.
And the problem with that is?
It means most of your life feels incomplete. Like you're always on the way, always in transit, never actually there. The real living is always deferred to some future point.
That definitely resonates. Always pushing for the next milestone, thinking then I'll be happy, then things will be right.
Exactly. Adler proposes a different view, an energial perspective. Life isn't aligned to a destination. It's more like dancing. Think about it. When you dance, is the goal to arrive at a specific spot on the floor after an hour?
No, the goal is the dancing itself.
Precisely. The process is the point. Each step, each moment of dancing is complete in itself. Or think of a journey. The value isn't only in reaching the destination, it's also in the experiences you have along the way. Life, in this view, is a series of moments, and each moment, lived fully, is complete.
Living each moment as if it's the whole point.
Yes. And the book argues that constantly focusing on past causes, I'm like this because of what happened, or future goals, I'll be happy when, is actually the greatest life lie.
The greatest life lie. Why?
Because it serves as an excuse not to live fully right here, right now. By dwelling on the past or dreaming of the future, you cast this kind of dim, hazy light over the present moment, making it seem less important, less real.
And the alternative is, what? Turning up the lights on now.
Pretty much. Shining a bright spotlight on the here and now. Focusing your energy, your attention, your efforts on what you can actually do in this present moment. Doing it earnestly, conscientiously.
Like the example of the writer who keeps putting off the novel.
Exactly. He blames lack of time, but maybe the real unconscious goal is avoiding the potential failure or judgment that comes with actually finishing it. By not writing now, he protects the illusion that I could have been great if only. He avoids engaging earnestly with the present task.
It's easier to keep the potential alive than to risk the reality.
It can feel safer, yes. Contrast that with the father mentioned, who finds meaning not in some grand future legacy, but in diligently doing his everyday work now. He finds completeness in the present activity. When you focus on the here and now and doing what's in front of you, life starts to feel simpler, less burdened, and paradoxically, more complete.
Wow. Okay. This whole conversation, this deep dive, it really does offer a fundamentally different way of looking at things, moving from cause to purpose.
From seeking external approval to finding worth and contribution.
From getting tangled in others' expectations to owning your own freedom.
And shifting from living on the way to a future point to living fully, like dancing right here and now.
It's a lot to take in. But the core message seems to be about choice, doesn't it?
Absolutely. That changing your lifestyle, which in Adlerian terms means your whole way of seeing the world and your place in it, isn't something dictated by your past. It's a choice you can make right now. It takes courage, definitely, but the possibility is always there.
So for you listening, maybe try this as a takeaway exercise. Think about one area where you feel a bit stuck or unhappy. Instead of asking why it's like this, looking for a past cause, try asking what purpose might this feeling or situation be serving for me right now? What goal might it be helping me achieve, even if unconsciously?
Or pick a relationship where there's some friction or worry. Apply that whose task is this question. Is the thing you're worrying about actually your responsibility, or is it theirs? How would truly separating those tasks change how you feel or act?
Just exploring those questions could be really revealing.
And maybe one final thought to leave you with, something the book concludes on. Adler suggests that life, in the grand cosmic sense, doesn't have an inherent preordained meaning.
That sounds a bit bleak.
Well, maybe initially. But the empowering part is, you get to assign meaning to your life. You choose your guiding star. And for Adler, the most meaningful guiding star you can choose is contribution to others.
So if happiness really is that feeling of contribution, even if it's just contributing by being there for someone, does that change how you think about what makes a life meaningful? And maybe how you might go about finding that meaning starting today?
Definitely something to